Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dev Diaries #1. My name is Samson, and today I'm bringing in Mathilde and Curt from Roboto Games. Today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about their history, how Roboto Games came to be, and a little bit about Roboto Games' next project, plus a lot more other stuff. Without further ado, please welcome Mathilde and Curt.
Hi,
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Mathilde and Curt, can you introduce yourselves a little bit? Maybe who you are, where do you work, and we'll go in from there.
Sure, I'll start. Hi, I'm Mathilde. I'm the co-founder and chief creative officer of Roboto Games.
And I am Curt Bererton, CEO of Roboto Games. And I guess if we want to do one or two sentences of introduction, I grew up on a farm, and I used to do AI and robots for my doctorate, and now I make video games. And this is our second company.
Wow, that's cool. AI and robots. Kind of related to games, but also very, very, very interesting. Awesome. Before we get too deep into your backgrounds and what Roboto Games is and what project you're working on next, I would love to know what did you bring today to drink on the pod or on the show?
I'm drinking sparkling water. It's the best.
Yeah,
Awesome.
It's currently noon over here, so I'm definitely sticking with mint tea for now. But I like my mint tea.
Oh, interesting. I brought black coffee. A little bit of
classic.
Yeah. Noon. You're right. I shouldn't be drinking caffeine this late, but live dangerously, as they say.
Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe Curt, we'll start with you. What are your top 3 games of all time?
So, I thought about this a little bit, and I grew up a little ways back, we'll say, and some of my top 3 are Ultima 4. So Ultima series is not as popular as it once was, but there's an Ultima 4 RPG game is one of the best role-playing games back in the day, and a lot of role-playing games took a lot of game DNA from that game, and then Crossfire is another sort of little-known game that was on Linux platform, and it was one of the first graphical MMOs, and it was really, really awesome. I put a lot of time into that. And then later on, some Counter-Strike, and then, of course, the Zelda series, if I can throw in a fourth one. The Zelda series is pretty amazing.
Awesome. A nice little shout out at the end there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's a great spread of different kinds of games. Mathilde, what about you? What are your top 3 games of all time?
Oh man, this is such a hard question because I feel like it changes all the time. There's so many new and cool games. But back in the day, I really enjoyed playing Warcraft 2 on a LAN with my friends, when we were home from school. So that was amazing. Definitely like the multiplayer experiences. And then more recently, I really enjoyed playing Marvel Snap on my phone a lot. That was great. I had a great time playing Zelda Breath of the Wild as well. It was the reason why Curt and I ended up having 2 Nintendo Switches because we just couldn't share the one. So yeah, but so many great games out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Marvel Snap is also in my top 5 or top 3 of all time. Just every day, got to play.
So good.
It's a great game.
That's awesome. Yeah. So those are some great games. It sounds like gaming has been a big part of your life for a very, very long time, from growing up till now. How did you both first get introduced to gaming? Mathilde, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. Yeah, So when I was a kid, I really wanted to have a gaming console, but my parents wouldn't let me. So I'd play on my friend's, computer or the Sega Genesis, and then finally convinced my parents to get me a Game Boy. So that was my first, honest to God, like my own gaming device, which was great. Except the games were really hard back in the day. So that could be frustrating at times.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I think I remember Super Mario Land. I don't think I ever beat it on Game Boy.
Yeah, so hard.
Yeah. Cool. Curt, what about you? How did you first get introduced to games?
So ever since I was young, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. And I grew up on a farm in Canada, and so my older brothers in particular were often playing games, and we played some of the very, very first consoles like ColecoVision, Atari 800, this kind of stuff. And but then after that, we were mostly sort of a PC gaming. Went through all the different PCs from Apple II to 386, 486, Pentium, all the way up through um, through a bunch of PC gaming, and so just been playing forever, really. And then went into computer engineering before doing AI and robots, and then AI for video games, and then AI. So I've been in and or around games for a long, long time.
Awesome. Cool. So it sounds like you kind of hinted at it, but you've been around games, whether directly or indirectly. Well, now you're directly in games. But Curt, can you maybe expand a little bit on your educational and professional background before you started Roboto Games?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously played a bunch of games at home, especially winters in Canada, lots of time for video games. If I wasn't, working on a tractor or something, in the summer, which there was less time for video games. And then I went into computer engineering, which is a mix of programming and electrical engineering. And then that sort of set me up for basically AI and robots, which I did at Carnegie Mellon, and I got my doctorate in robotics and AI, and that was great. I got to build robots, and then a lot of the simulation for robots is a lot like a video game because you're simulating them in a system, and you're trying to drive them around, make them do stuff. And in fact, I used a game engine even for that project, and I converted some sort of robotics algorithms, in this case, something called particle filters, to help enemy AI track people like a real person would, and they would search around in a map and stuff like this, and presented that as a poster at GDC a long time ago. And so I've always had an interest, and I really wanted to do AI for games, and then I was too early. I was, maybe 15 years too early for the current generative AI stuff. It was nobody cared about it back in the day, and now all of a sudden it's super cool. But yeah, and then in 2000, Mathilde and I met at Carnegie Mellon, and one thing to know about us is we're one of these weird co-founder and married couples as well. So we have been working together for a long time, since 2007 now, and now we started working in 2007, sold our first company in 2000, a few years after that, and then we ran a studio at Electronic Arts for a couple of years. And we actually sold our first company to PopCap Games, for those who remember sort of Bejeweled and Plants vs. Zombies and stuff like that. And then we took some time off and started Roboto Games. So,
yeah, that's awesome. What a wild and beautiful story that you two ended up together. Same passion, same expertise. AI very popular right now. Yeah, so Mathilde, what about you? What was your educational and professional background leading you to create Roboto Games with Curt?
So my background is I got an undergrad in computer science and psychology at Carnegie Mellon, and then my master's in human-computer interaction, which is what they used to call UX design, user experience design, back in the day. And I did take a couple of classes, video game classes at CMU, but they didn't have much at the time yet, because it was just around when I graduated that the Entertainment Technology Center was created. So anyway, after college, I actually interviewed at BioWare but I wanted them to create a new position for me as a UX designer, and they were like, "What is this? And can you program?" So instead, I went to eBay as a designer at the auction website, which was very educational. And then I left and joined Frog Design, which did design consulting for Fortune 500 companies. I worked on printer UI, TV UI, physical cameras, all sorts of random things. But I really wanted them to get game clients, but that wasn't in the cards back then. So yeah, then Curt and I both left our jobs and started our first company, Zip Zap Play, in 2007. And that was a wild ride for sure. So we ended up making games on the Facebook platform around the time where Farmville was huge, and we ended up making a top 20 game on the platform called Baking Life, which was a lot of fun. And yeah, then as Curt said, right, we sold to PopCap, and a month after we sold to PopCap, they sold to Electronic Arts. So
Wow.
that was also super exciting, a little too exciting.
Yeah. Wow, that's so. It sounds like you both have this breadth of working in like video game technologies, or a lot of the technologies video games use today, but in those sectors that aren't directly games, like working at eBay or working with robot AI instead of AI in video games. That's fascinating. And now you're bringing all that expertise back to games with Roboto Games.
That's right.
Awesome. What games or game developers had a significant influence on your careers and the games that you are looking to create at Roboto Games?
So I can start. I mean, there's plenty of games related, and it's related to the mission of Roboto Games. And in fact, that mission has evolved a bit over the last couple of years. And it used to be that the mission was to bring friends and family together, which is a very sort of multiplayer focused mission. And now currently the mission is good alone, great together, which is an important but subtle distinction between those two. And so for Roboto, a lot of what we were looking at is anything and everything multiplayer. In fact, our team plays multiplayer games every week, and we played almost, I don't know, I wouldn't say everything. You can't say everything again. We played a lot. We've played a lot of multiplayer games, every genre, every kind, asynchronous, synchronous, online, couch co-op, blah, 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 blah. We've played them all. Not all, a lot. We've played a lot. And what was interesting is that when we were working on our first title, which is a cross-platform pixel battle royale game called Last Mage Standing, it's still up. You can play that. We found that the kinds of games we were starting to play on these sort of multiplayer game nights and sort of game, we call them happy times. We started to play more and more survival crafting games, and that was sort of the genesis of how we are now working on an open world survival crafting game. Is that our team really liked them, and when we had played that genre of game, there was always something for the whole team to do. For people who like combat, they could just go in and try to fight bosses and sort of level up through all the tiers of equipment. And then for the people who were less fans of that, they could go and sort of forage for resources and work on building up the base. And it really became a game that was both good alone and great together. It's something that you can play and have a good time by yourself, but when you play with other people, it's really great. Whether it's working together on a boss or working on some big construction project. Oh, you go get the iron, I'll go get some cloth, and we'll go and put it together, and it'll be great, right? And so I think that's sort of how a little bit of the genesis story for how we got to sort of the current genre in Roboto. But maybe Mathilde can add some more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in terms of game developers that have influenced us, I would say definitely Daniel James, founder of Three Rings and the creator of the puzzle MMO Puzzle Pirates, was one of the first person that we met in the industry, and he was so helpful and nice, and so we keep in touch with him to this day. So he's been super helpful. And then Emily Greer, also the founder and CEO of Congregate and now Double Loop Games, has also been an inspiration. She's fearless, and then I don't know. It's just so many people, right? It's what I love about the industry is really the camaraderie of people, and how it's like, yeah, we're kind of competing, but also everybody is nice and helping each other more so than in other industries, I find. So.
Cool. That's amazing. That's a lot of cool names and projects that have influenced your expertise and passion over the years. Uh, Speaking of passion, what aspects of gaming truly resonate with you and make you passionate about it? Like not just playing, but also creating.
Yeah, maybe I can start this time. So the aspect of gaming that really inspires me is how it just brings joy to people, right? And it's something that I was really missing early on in my career, working on more productivity software and tools. Is it's like they have to use those devices, they have to use the printer, but games, nobody has to play a game. They choose to play a game because it brings them joy, happiness. And so seeing the smile on people's faces when they play games. And that's even more true for multiplayer games, right? Because when you're playing with your friends, you're forging those bonds and strengthening those bonds. And that's really special. And so my most fond memories of playing games early on are playing games with my friends. So that's what we're trying to really bring to the world. And that's why Curt and I started Roboto Games, even though we didn't have to, right? After selling our first company, we could have retired, but no, that would be boring. So
Amazing. Curt?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that came together, I think, and it relates to the mission of Roboto Games. I mean, we bring friends and family together, and good alone, great together are really about multiplayer. And as Mathilde was mentioning, some of our most fond memories are related to playing games with our friends. But we learned an interesting lesson with our first game, a Pixel Battle Royale game, which is if you're making a competitive PvP game, you need a lot of players to make sort of really good skill-based matchmaking. So it can be tricky if you have a pure PvP game, which is one reason why we really like survival crafting, because you can have a great time just playing by yourself, but it's really great when you bring other people in. But the founding idea was, hey, we like to play games with our friends and family, right? And those are the best memories we've had, whether it's couch co-op with a console, or over the internet playing Counter-Strike, or playing Warcraft on a LAN, or whatever it is, right? So those are super awesome, and we think strategically it's better to do good alone, great together, so that people can try the game out by themselves and really grow a love for that game, and then they invite their friends to play, and then it should be even better, right? So again, this is all back to the good alone, great together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that philosophy. And I'm sure we'll come back to it later in this episode. But I also love that point you brought up, Mathilde, that games are chosen, not necessarily you have to do them. So when you make a game or when you play a game, there's a sense of agency and wanting to do this task instead of having to use a printer AI or eBay's UI.
Mhm.
That's awesome. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourselves and how you came together and came to make Roboto Games, and maybe the philosophies that go into Roboto Games and your next upcoming project, which we'll also touch on. So, what was the initial spark or idea that led to the formation of Roboto Games? You said that the good alone, great together actually came a little later. So, what was kind of the initial idea or inspiration for Roboto Games?
yeah, the inspiration really was to make multiplayer games because selfishly we wanted to make games that we could play with our friends and family. So I'm originally from France, and I have lots of friends and family still there. And Curt is from Canada, and he has his family still there, and so we keep in touch with them by playing games. So we wanted to make multiplayer games. That was the vision, right? So bring friends and family together through games. And then more recently, as Curt was mentioning, we've updated our mission statement to be good alone, great together. So still multiplayer, but games you can also play solo and enjoy solo. And survival crafting games fit that bill really, really well. But yeah, so that was the reason, right? We wanted to make games that we could play ourselves and enjoy ourselves with our friends and family.
Awesome. Yeah. Curt, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean that we talked a little bit about sort of that evolution there, but really that was the genesis. We actually discussed a bunch of different genres and other possible directions, but the one that sort of lets us get up in the morning and want to keep on going is that sort of games that are fun to play with your friends and family, that create a social bond, and Mathilde and I have a couple of kids, and now we play games with them. Like, there's a bunch of, some folks think that games are just a waste of time, but I think compared to linear mediums such as, television and books, they can, unlike other mediums, form a bond between people, and it can give you something to bond over, and not just, between parents and kids or us with our relatives, but even at school, we see it with school kids. They are often playing video games to stay in touch. Right now, it's basically Fortnite and Minecraft and Roblox. Like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, those are the top three. And it is a huge part of their lives. It is how they stay in touch. And during the pandemic, it was, also super duper important. And it, for me, just emphasized how important and how great these things can be to form sort of a social fabric, especially in a day and age where people are on their screens a lot of their lifetime. So, at least this is a really good and social way to proceed.
Totally. Yeah. I also play video games every night with my friends. It's something that I look forward to. It's something that keeps us together, and those kind of game relationships do carry out to going out for dinner and hanging out in person. So
Exactly.
Games are a great vessel for that. Yeah. Speaking a little more about Roboto Games as a company, were there any challenges that you faced in the early days, and how'd you overcome them?
So many challenges. So many challenges. I don't know. How long do you have? So, but I don't know. There was a lot of things that we did at first that we were exploring a bunch of ideas sort of more separately at first, and that was almost like solo dev, sort of trying stuff out, and we ultimately decided that wasn't working out very well. I picked a project that was too big in scope, and I was sort of grinding away on it, and Mathilde sort of was able to ship a game, but ultimately we're always great together. Just to hit that bell, right? You can make better games with more people and more sort of ideas in the pot, and so that was an example of one challenge, is that we needed to pick a specific vision that we could all align on, and I think we got there, and we shipped a pretty cool game called Last Mage Standing, and now we're working on this new one codenamed Project Storm, and we've got a lot of alignment from the team, also based on just sort of playing these games together as a team and picking a genre we really love.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can add to that, one of the main challenge for Roboto Games was really picking a project and a direction that we could get behind, right? And could get the team behind. And that's one of the challenges, I think, with making multiplayer games, is that many different gamers have different expectations and different skills levels and different availability to play games. And so we actually have a set of design principles that we apply to our games, that we say, hey, these games need to be broad appeal. We don't do like too violent or too gory. These games need to be to fit into people's lives and have the option to be flexible, and you can contribute to building up the base while everybody else is at work or whatever, right? If you have some extra time, and skill flexibility as well, making sure that less skilled players in combat usually is the one, right, can also participate and feel like they're valuable members of the team, right, if they're playing. So survival crafting really checks so many boxes for us, and we saw it when we're playing with the team, right, every Friday. It's like those are the games that we would keep playing the longest, that people would keep playing over the weekends, and that everybody felt like they were contributing, and we felt like, yeah, everybody can participate and feel good. So I think that was the biggest challenge, right, with Roboto Games, was really picking what project we could really get behind as a team and move forward with. And I'm really excited about this one for sure.
Awesome. So it sounds like one of the big challenges was, finding that unified vision and collaborating in that way and moving forward with that collaboration. And that perfectly segues into my next question, is that collaboration and teamwork are crucial in game development. So how do you foster a positive and creative work environment while also maintaining those values of collaboration and teamwork?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do we foster collaboration? So we are actually a very, very collaborative team. Sometimes it really surprises people who are not used to that as much. And one of the ways that we do that is we are constantly asking everybody on the team for their feedback and their opinions on the game design and how we're moving forward. So just earlier today, we were reviewing the results of a survey that we sent out to the team about one of the pivotal aspects of the game and seeing if they have any updates or feedback on it. So we care a lot about everybody on the team having a voice and making sure that everybody is really invested in the game that we're making, and just generally making sure that Roboto Games is a great place to work, right? We care deeply about the culture. We've always cared deeply about the culture of our companies. And, life's too short to not enjoy what you do. So we want to make sure that that's true for everybody who works at Roboto, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And just to add to that, I mean, some of the things that we do included playing multiplayer games regularly together as a team, right? Which is a way to bond. And as a company, we're a hybrid company. There are some people who are local in the Bay Area, but that's more the minority. And so we're primarily a remote friendly company. And so we try to organize different events. So we have twice per year, we have an onsite where people all get together in person. And that is really helpful. And we do sort of group social activities in addition to and then one thing we do, for example, just, a classic game development routine is to do what's called a stand-up, where people sort of talk about what they did yesterday, what they're doing today, and do they need anything from anybody else. But we also try to add into that sort of, just tell us one personal thing about what happened yesterday. And this, in a remote working environment, gives people like, oh, I know they like to knit, or I know they like to do this kind of activity, or, so-and-so's, lawn got ripped up by raccoons, or whatever it happens to be, right? So, and that stuff, I think it adds a lot. It adds more than you might think. So, so we try to do that. And also, as Mathilde mentioned, we, anytime we do any of these things, we'll send out a survey, or we'll ask in our one-on-ones, just like, hey, in fact, one of the key questions we like to ask in our one-on-ones is, hey, if you were running the company, what would you do differently? If you were making this game, what would you do differently? Now, of course, sometimes in a group of a bunch of people are going to disagree, right? And so that's when sort of the discipline leads, they're the ones who make the final call, right? But we do try to get people's voices to be heard, even if ultimately we might go a different way.
That's awesome. Yeah, like remote work is such a new, fascinating thing, especially a hybrid team where parts of your team are in person, online. But it sounds like you are taking these first steps to make sure that the remote people are just as included as the in-person people, as well as also, giving them chances and avenues to have their voices heard. Um, of course, there's always a limit to that. Like you said, there's always the hard stop on certain things. But I think just having that avenue to voice in the first place is huge, especially for those folks that don't get to go in person every day. So that's awesome.